Yeah.
Oh, we're in. We're hot. We're live.
Woohoo! No fancy intro this time.
No
Why?
fancy
Because
intro.
it's Fireside Unscripted.
Super unscripted. Off the cuff. Super chill. Super chillax. Get out your smoking jacket and your fez and
Why I'm here.
other stuff while you're here.
Yeah.
She
I
can't handle
only
the
bring
pressure of
relaxation.
the high speed production of the research environment. Psh, psh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Savannah
It's definitely
only
not
brings
just
the chill
chaos.
Yeah.
All right.
I totally thought you were going to iPad kid that. Just full on like tongue out, cough into the mic.
No, I'm trying to be respectful of people's
I
time
don't
and
know.
eardrums.
It's just because I live with teenagers and
My-
that's their favorite joke right now.
That's-
Is they'll just walk up to me and like iPad kid me.
I had
That's
to act like I knew
legit.
what that was until you explained it, because I was like, I don't know what that means. I had to Google cap and no cap so I could use it appropriately with a 19-year-old.
What? No cap?
Why would I know this, John? You youngins.
Robin got it.
I got it.
Robin got it. That's how you use it. Get with the times.
So can we get to the
Fireside Unscripted is
articles.
the,
I don't
is
wanna
the
get to
part of
any
the
times.
podcast where we just torture Savannah with.
Let's be honest, that's why you're all here.
It's true. Oh my goodness.
It's not. Okay,
Somebody
so
introduce us.
yes. I'm Robin, that's John, that's Savannah. This week we are talking about the clickbait headlines that got us. We're talking about 3 different articles that we found, one each, that we felt like the headlines were very sensational and the content of the article was not. And also sometimes just completely way off base. So what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to go through them and talk about each one. We'll talk about the headline first, and then first impressions of like what we thought the article should be explaining to us. And then we'll talk about the actual content of the article. And we will make sure that we link all of these in our social, in the episode description. And I'm sure we'll talk about them on social individually as we go through the week. Because the other day I learned that Instagram doesn't like it when you use political words. So we're going to have to come up with a social strategy that is a little bit on the download side. So we'll be talking about these probably in a handy dandy green screen reel. You're all welcome.
Oh, I gotta get a green screen? Dang, all right.
No, it's a filter.
I have so much to learn. No
I
cap.
know. No
Oh
cap.
God.
It's so useful though.
Okay.
I do want to, before we get into our individual articles, bring up my article that I was struggling with.
You're gonna out
So-
yourself like that?
I don't care.
Okay.
Like,
Alright.
it's,
Okay.
I was giving
So-
you a buy on that one.
when Robin assigned this homework to us to find some articles, I found one that I was like, this doesn't seem like it makes any sense at all. And the title is Why Fiber is the Key to Getting Faster 5G Everywhere. And I proceeded to read more than half of the article before I realized that they were not talking about eating fiber.
It
And
just
they were-
doesn't get less funny. It just doesn't.
I work in this field, which is like the most embarrassing part.
I'm a
It took for-
professional.
I was like, how is eating apples going to help my internet speed?
That's gonna be the
Oh.
most popular reel we have ever made. How is eating apples gonna help my internet?
There's a joke
I
in
was
there
so
about
stoked to bring this article to you guys. And before I was like, oh, they mean fiber optics. Okay, never mind. That makes way more sense. All right. Sorry
there's
about
a
that.
joke in there about transmission and package buildup somewhere. I can't. I don't.
I'm
have-
sure.
I don't-
Wow. You almost pushed it out, John.
Oh, I didn't want to force it. This is where we. This is where we are. How far Fireside has fallen.
Jesus.
This is why I like these episodes way more. You can't research, healthy poop strategies.
Oh,
I mean,
yes,
you,
you
but
can.
you can. Yes, you can.
Have I written or edited? I can't remember whether I wrote it or not. An article for Whole 30 about your poop. Yeah, definitely did. Either wrote that one or edited it, one of the two.
Either one is too much. Oh my gosh. All
So
right.
our actual articles.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So here's my proposed order. We will go. I'm proposing that we go in order of magnitude that they made me angry, which is mine first, then Savannah's, and then John's.
Yay. That's pretty much how
'Cause
life goes, isn't it?
I like
John's
bossing
always the
people
one that
around.
upsets you most.
Go
It's
for
fair.
it,
It's
Robin.
fair. Okay.
Floor is yours.
Okay, article 1 is from CNN, and actually this headline caught my attention a couple weeks ago, and I, without thinking, sent a screenshot from Instagram from a reputable news source that just had a picture of the headline, and the headline is, a Michigan police chief has apologized after it emerged that the department used images of Black men during target practice. On the surface, that makes me angry, right?
Mhm.
Like that gets me fired up. And I was like, well, this is a thing that happened. And everyone was like legitimately fired up. And then I don't think it even took an hour before I was like, okay, here's the deal. We got to talk about misleading headlines because, yeah. So, yeah. Do we want to give away the twist or do we want to talk about the article first?
Oh, give away the twist because
Yeah.
Okay.
the way I read this, because I knew what this was about reading it because I have personally trained on those targets. And so like as I was reading through it, reading people like what they were saying and the reactions, like knowing what those targets are, I was just like, are you kidding me? Like
I thought the
really?
same thing.
Yeah. So basically, story here, a Boy Scout troop was on a tour through the Farmington Hills Police Department one day, and a photo taken by an unidentified individual on the tour showed 3 of the hanging targets that officers use to practice their quick response times and basically train them to only shoot bad guys, not to shoot old ladies with groceries, et cetera, et cetera. And it turns out that out of the 100% of targets that this police department uses, 85% of them are Caucasian and 15% of them are Black. So the huge outrage in this is because the headline conjures that picture that, oh, all of their targets, right? All of the targets that they use are Black men, and they're only practicing, and that explains why police are more likely to shoot Black men than they are Caucasian men. And while, yes, they are like more likely to shoot Black men than they are to shoot Caucasian men, the conversation is just intricately more nuanced than what race are the targets that are hanging in their shooting range.
Yeah, this is a red herring, frankly, because what the way that these targets are used is there's a couple of ways they're used. It depends on how it's set up. Sometimes they're facing away from you and then the target will turn to face you and you have to make a judgment call. Shoot or no shoot. Do they have a weapon? Do they not have a weapon? Or sometimes you walk into a scenario or a situation and you have to assess, what am I looking at? And some of these targets are, bad guys, quote unquote. They have, sunglasses. I don't know why all bad guys wear sunglasses, but they do in this world. And like hats and a gun. And they're really they're making some gesture that is threatening with the gun. And you have to, assess, oh, there's a weapon. This person is intending to use it. I need to issue commands. And then a lot of the times what would happen is we'd have an instructor off of our shoulder and they would say, they're not reacting or they're starting to shoot, like give us a cue to react off of. Sometimes they'd say they dropped the weapon. Mm-hmm. And so then you have to, change your tactics. So it wasn't always like, oh, there's a guy with a gun, shoot him. In our training environment, which might not be the same as every training environment.
Not in mine.
It was, there was, randomization to that. And sometimes, yes, the person that was the subject of the image was a Black guy or a Black woman, but it makes sense because when you're out doing police work in the population, sometimes the people that you come up against are going to be Black people. they do
Right.
exist. Right? So
They do.
this is actually something that I think can be a useful and is a useful tool for identifying and training out bias, especially bias in reactions, because your reactions tend to be something that you don't actively consciously process. You just react. And if you're reacting and shooting somebody who, because they have darker skin, and that shows up in the training, then like, hey, we need to have a talk. But this article is terrible.
It's terrible, and it is honestly, it's from CNN, and I really expected better. I think in the article itself, the body of the article, they do a really good job of walking through everyone's perspective. I would say the article itself is clearly unbiased and presents all of the sides of the information, including statistics, right? You've got the statistics about how many of the targets were Black and how many were Caucasian, but also they tell you that 18.5% of the Farmington Hills population is Black. Right. So you're able to compare the percentage of targets with the actual percentage of the population. It's not way off base. Yeah. Right. If anything, there could have been a few more. But what frustrates me is that this is outrage baiting. Right. If I have dark skin, I'm going to read this and I'm going to get really angry. And it features the quote that it features, the Boy Scout troop hired a lawyer. Right. Yeah. And this lawyer's going into detail about how this is absolutely not acceptable. They shouldn't have to see people who look like them hang up in these targets because we are not your target, right? Black people are not your target. And that's unrealistic, because unless people are never going to encounter Black people in a law enforcement situation, then we need them to have that kind of experience, like John was saying. And so I don't know, this one just, it caught me, and then it pissed me off. And I'm mad that there's enough that happens in our society that I could believe it instantly. And I'm mad that I got taken.
Yeah. Savannah, I'm sorry. You said you mentioned that you had used similar targets.
Some. I mean, the Marine Corps doesn't do shoot versus don't shoot. Yeah. They only do shoot. So yeah,
that's fair.
Fair. That could be in a t-shirt. Marine Corps. We only do shoot.
We only do shoot. So yeah, but the targets that I've practiced on were also culturally different.
Yeah.
They have they also do a lot of just silhouettes that just like the man silhouette. It's not detailed.
Yeah. And we trained on those too.
When I first started reading this article, I'm like, well, yeah, they're all just Black because it's just
it's a shadow.
That's another one.
Look, it's been a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, I don't know. We don't do the whole training on not shooting, but yeah, when I was reading the article, that came up, me thinking like, well, yeah, of course they're Black. And also we practiced on someone that looked like Freddie Mercury. It was definitely a white dude, but yeah, facial features exactly like Freddie Mercury. So anyway, we are prepared.
We had that target too, actually.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
Like it looks.
I was like, oh, I'm murdering Queen.
I'm absolutely obsessed with the market for target practice stock photography now.
Oh, I don't think it's been updated since like the 80s. Because like the targets I was using was definitely was wearing dated clothing as well.
If you go out into town, you can get zombies. You can get like anything. Yeah. So
no, but I mean like there's, because in marketing, right, I use Adobe stock almost every single day. I go find stock photography of old and injured dogs and of burning sage and of all kinds of different things for our clients.
What kind of monster client wants an old and injured dog?
We actually have a client who
is a
only
monster.
Sells products. No, they sell products for old and injured dogs.
It's about the marketing, John. Could you just chill out?
No.
They sell mobility aids. They sell supplements.
Not a monster company, but don't break my heart.
Harnesses.
Tony Braxton.
That's my job, is to break your heart, and then take your money.
Cruel.
It works.
It does.
I'm super good at it.
And the
But-
Arms of an
So-
Angel, man. I'll never be able to listen to that song again.
Absolutely ruined it.
Well, my article,
Yeah. Moving along. Let's go.
Moving right along.
I have to keep you guys on the
Yep.
track.
Keep us honest here.
All right. So my article comes from Fox News, y'all's favorite news source. And it is Twitter disgusted by New York Times piece suggesting that there's a time and a place for cannibalism. And that is just right off the cuff, sensationalized. Like that's
Right?
Yeah. Everyone likes a little bit of cannibalism. So when you
I'm just gonna clip together Savannah moments, and that's gonna be our social media strategy for this
Right
week.
there. That's it.
please
It's our-
don't.
you-
How
that is
many
our whole
Instagram people
strategy.
can we discuss with Savannah's, praising cannibalism?
Don't knock it till you try it. I actually am never mind. I'm not. So I ate part of my placenta. So I mean, I feel like I could be considered a cannibal. They go into
You
this is
didn't
definitely-
like you didn't like pill, like you didn't freeze dry it and do pills,
So I
because I don't know if that counts. Anyway, we need to stop. I digress.
I have always been fascinated by the placental eating craze. I don't get it.
Look,
That's-
if it helped me with the hormone shift, I was on board with anything. So it could have been a placebo
can't-
effect. It could have not, but whatever. I don't care.
I can't even eat like foie gras.
So here's the thing: is that Matrix's poor self, and actually your wife helped sneak the placenta out of the hospital. John, did you know that?
She's a
no.
placenta thief.
You know she would be behind something
Yeah,
like
oh,
this.
I know it. I'm just sad.
Anyway, and Matrix took it home and cooked it, and then
Wait,
pulverized it and then pilled it. So
I
yeah.
do think I remember this story. Yep, and I'm pretty sure I blocked it from my mind because
Oh,
There's an exhibit
I'm
in San
picturing
Diego.
Matrix sautéing placenta, and it's just
Oh, he took a picture.
a
He took a picture
wild
of it. Yep.
image.
yeah.
There's
Instant
an
pot that shit.
Oh, can you imagine the steam?
No!
When you open it.
It would smell
Ah!
so bad.
It was
We're
very
not even
veiny.
talking about the article anymore, guys. Horrifying. This is
Everything is content. Everything is content.
So, John,
Cannibalism.
there's an exhibit in the Balboa Park, and it's the bodies exhibit kind of thing, sort of, but it's about cannibalism. So I went over there with a friend, and they talk
as
about
one
how there's
does.
yes,
I mean, I'd go to it.
right. I learned a lot, okay? And there was a part at the end, and like my poor friend who will be listening to this also, we were going through and looking at the different types of cannibalism there is and talk about like, well, where do you draw the line? If you chew your nails, does that count? Does it have to be meat? Can it be breast milk? Can it be like the people that eat hair, drink blood? Some people like lick their wounds and they drink the blood from the wounds, that kind of stuff. Where do you draw the line at cannibalism? Like, does it have to be the chopping? John's face is just fantastic right now. I wish everyone who could hear it.
Check out the YouTube because that's where you'll see it in all of its horror.
And the placenta was on there. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've done this. Anyway, I love you, Liz. Thank you for continuing to be my friend. So anyway, back to the article. So this article is sensationalized because they're trying to make it seem like the New York Times is in favor of cannibalism when in fact the New York Times piece, like, for one, I hate articles about articles. Like, you can get into just
Yeah.
like, that's not journalism.
We should write an article about this article about an article and see
I mean, technically,
how
we're doing a
many outrage
podcast
clicks
about the
we can
article.
get. Holy crap, we are.
What?
We're so meta.
Yeah, well, in that article, John, I'm gonna put up the pictures of my placenta as it's being diced up. And
This is a meta. Oh my god.
so anyway, the actual article that New York Times was writing about was talking about cannibalism in like media and literary works and works of art. They were not talking about actual cannibalism. So that right off the cuff is completely misleading, unnecessary, just driving clicks. And it, if you're a Fox News reader, listener, and you see that, you're just going to automatically think the New York Times people want to eat people. And it just further divides things. So that's my take on it. What did y'all think?
Well, so here's what made me angry as I was reading through the article. I am a big fan of using Twitter as a collective noun. Twitter is mad. Twitter is angry. Twitter is stupid, right? In this case, Fox News is heavily trying to imply that a few conservative dudes who write shit sometimes are Twitter. Right? So as you go through the article, their only quotes are from like 3 or 4 conservative authors who don't make any meaningful comment about the scope of the article except for one, and only respond to the headline. Well, no, Twitter's not disgusted. 3 or 4 dudes forgot to read the article.
Forgot. That was actually my point, is that writing a story about Twitter reactions is the dumbest idea that a news agency could have, which is probably why Fox is officially filed as an entertainment agency. But like,
it's true.
The problem with Twitter and the problem with headlines in general is that people very often, very frequently only read headlines. That's why clickbait works, because even though the goal behind clickbait, the primary goal is to get people to click into the article so they can get that sweet, sweet advertising money. Robin, you monster feeding into this. The secondary goal is to get people talking about it and generating traffic so that more people click into it.
Yeah.
So the headlines are obviously constructed to elicit an emotional response. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's anger or disgust or outrage. Sometimes it's like awe or
angry clicks.
Warmth. No. The opposite of that. Sometimes it's like, you won't believe what this mother did for her children, you know? Like, oh, I can't wait to read this heartwarming story that's probably made up or sensationalized out the butt.
Right.
And this sort of journalism just feeds into that. I think it's a horrible trend. I think it's making the discourse around how we talk about the goings on in the world more limited and overall just dumber. Like,
would you like
to tweet
about that? Would you like to tweet about that?
You know, I would. No, I have a Twitter. I use it so infrequently. I've had it for years now, and I think I have fewer than like 20 tweets somewhere in there, maybe fewer than 50. I don't know. Most of the time, I actually just end up reacting to one single friend's jokes on Twitter, who I've known since like middle school, and that's like it. I just feed into his jokes. So
yeah, mine is all full of football shit. When I get really mad and I don't have anybody to talk to about football while it's happening, a lot of times I'll just tweet angry things. But the Fox News article looks like they're doing their due diligence and linking to the New York Times article, right? In the first paragraph, it just said, they say after the New York Times published an article, and there's a link there. It's just to a database of Fox News articles about the New York Times. It's not even a link to the actual article,
which is awful journalism. Sorry.
Oh, it's awful journalism, but also they have a lot to lose by linking externally.
Because then, they're going to go find the real source.
They're going to be exposed to real news.
Yes, they can't let their readers outside of the loop. That is the click hole that is Fox News, because once their reader exits, they'll see that the actual headline for that New York Times article is "A Taste for Cannibalism?" ? And the subhead is a spate of recent stomach-churning books, TV shows, and films suggests we've never looked so delicious to one another, right? It is clear what this piece is about. But if you let people outside of the bounds of your journalism, they're going to discover that you are intentionally misinterpreting the thing. I mean, reasonable people. One one of the things about this article is that it did force me to confront a little bit of bias.
Uh-oh.
As I was
Please.
reading it, I was getting really frustrated at the intentional misreading and misunderstanding of the article, the New York Times article. And I found myself thinking about the reasonable person standard and like, would a reasonable person read this and think that this article is condoning cannibalism in any way or suggesting that it might be an acceptable option? And I found myself immediately going to the idea that conservative commentators do not equal reasonable people. So that was a little bit of a bias for me that I have to confront and I have to work through. But I was like, of course, these people misunderstand it because they are unreasonable. I believe mostly intentionally. But so there's that. There's that. And just the deliberate ignoring of or inclusion of comments that we know from context as humans and how people talk to each other were humorous.
Yeah.
But they're included as though they're serious, right? Like, society's gotten bad when the New York Times is like, we now recommend that you start eating each other.
The one
That's
right
clearly
under that
a
is the one under that is what I was looking at. Scientist Dr. David Schiffman lamented that this wasn't the type of progress he envisioned for humanity, tweeting, "I was promised flying cars." Like, no,
right.
that's clearly internet humor.
Yes. And to be deliberately obtuse. I'm assuming deliberately obtuse because I really do want to confront that bias. Yeah, it just...
Yep.
It's the framing of the tweet, as there's one reporter from The Hill who commented on the framing of the tweet from the New York Times and how, like, yeah, we get that this is what it's about, but the framing makes it look like this. Okay, that's a good thing for one journalist to call it to another. I'm pretty confident that the New York Times knew exactly how they were framing that piece. But
I mean, the New York Times title by itself was a clickbait headline, but
yeah,
it was... I still hate clickbait. I still don't approve of this, but that's the kind of headline that gets you to read the article.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and
okay. You know what? Sorry.
Oh, Savannah's raising her hand.
She's going to say
And then
we
I'll
need to
say
get to the
marketing
next
words.
Oh,
No, we
yeah,
don't,
in a
we still have
second.
time. We have plenty of time.
So on my blog, I wrote an article once. God, I think it was back in 2018. And the title of the article is "The Time I Was Bent Over and Fucked by like 4 different men." And I shared that on my social media, and my stats went through the fucking roof.
Yup.
Like insanity. And the whole entire article was me, like I was salaciously talking about stuff. And then I was like, and this is ridiculous fucking clickbait. And I can't believe you guys fall for it. I'm so tired of this kind of like, anyway, it gets people every time. I'm probably going to go repost that tonight.
Do it.
Yeah, it does. It does.
We'll share
And
it on the
that's
Fireside
actually
Breakdowns main.
We won't.
We
We
won't.
won't.
Aw, Robin's got an image to uphold, John.
We
Come
can-
on.
no.
No,
we
I
can-
don't want to get my Instagram account that is barely hanging on by dear life taken off of the platform. How Savannah killed our podcast. No, just kidding.
Okay, on to the
Well, no,
next
that's-
article.
That's the point, though. The difference, there's a very distinct delineation between an intriguing and well-written headline that's going to cause people to engage and clickbait. This is clickbait. New York Times is an intriguing headline. The substance to back up the headline is all in the New York Times article. It's not leading you to believe anything that it's not laying out at the beginning, but you do want to know what the heck, right? But the Fox News article, the CNN article, the content of the article does not match the headline. And that's where that line for clickbait, from a marketing perspective at least, that's where the line for clickbait comes in.
It's full of red meat for the for the specific base, we talked about him a lot in the first series of this season. Um, the person who is afraid of the changes that they perceive in the world and think that it
Mhm.
is the result of drifting from God or the liberal media or something like that. And that's why they have a lot of these quotes in here.
Mhm.
They just, these quotes only make sense in the mentality of, you know, we are a nation cast adrift from God and we need his mercy to save us. Or we are a
Right.
nation controlled by the liberal media and we need to, you know, overthrow them and get back to real reporting, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's
There is even a line in there about pagan undertones.
yeah.
Right. There's pagan undertones in the Times article.
Yeah.
It all
Speaking about
looped in that.
paganism, though.
Yeah.
Oh, but hold on. I
Boom.
just have to say
Oh,
that
it was such a good segue, Robin.
it is. I have to throw this in there because then everybody who hears this is going to have it stuck in their head too. All I've been thinking this entire time is the Shia LaBeouf cannibal song.
You mean actual
Cannibal Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, which no joke goes through my head 4 or 5 times a day, but this has just made it worse all day long. I've been singing that in my head.
All right. Well,
Thank God I don't know what
you
you're
know what
talking
else
about.
is a surprise?
Oh, you're about to know what we're talking about, Savannah.
No.
You're going to get that music video
No.
sent directly to your brain.
I don't click on things, so good luck.
We'll put a really
only
catchy title on it.
articles
And you'll be like, oh, what's this about?
As long as it's about how I can have better poops.
Now we know the
I
secret.
bet
That's how we get
actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf has good poops.
Okay, moving on. Anyway, so my article comes from Christianity Today. And this one
First problem
hit my
Sorry.
confirmation bias button like one of those freaking like bells at the state fair where you use the big hammer to ring it, you know, send the little metal thing up to ring it. I saw this, I saw who it was from, and I immediately was like, okay, that checks out. And I actually didn't even read the article the first time because I was like, I know what that's about. It's not worth my time. And it wasn't until actually on Twitter, somebody was like, hey, this article's actually about this. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll check it out because that is an M. Night Shyamalan twist. M. Night Shyamalan, I'll say it right. So the headline is Fantasy Role-Playing is Hurting America. And somewhere in the 80s, a mother has snatched a D&D board away from their child as I read that. So this actually opens up pretty much leading you exactly where you think it's going to do. The first statement is like, as a kid in the 1980s, I heard dire warnings from my evangelical elders about the fantasy role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, come on, please. I hope that Twitter article was, or I hope that tweet was right. So in this, the author talks about how fantasy role playing of a different sort is actually what's ruining America, and that is not the D&D role playing, the resurgence in popularity that it is experiencing at this moment. It is actually has to do specifically with this in this article with Steve Bannon and his role in basically building up a certain subset of, you know, of supporters, of Trump supporters, no two ways about it, to lead up to January 6th and to do things like that. And the article goes through how Bannon thinks about, for those who don't know, and the article describes this to a little bit, Steve Bannon actually was involved in the film industry and in the video game industry for a while before he became this agent provocateur that he is now. And so he's wired to think about how to hook somebody and to keep them interested. And he talks about how people, especially your pretty average Joe, they kind of don't want to be the average Joe. Everybody wants to be a hero. to some degree. So Bannon describes, what did he call it? Dave from accounts payable.
Yeah.
And yeah, he says it's a hypothetical, man. And in the days after the death of Dave from accounts payable, Bannon is talking about those days. And he says some preacher from a church or some guy from a funeral home who's never met him does a 10-minute eulogy, says a few prayers, and that's Dave. And he contrasts that boring real life Dave from accounts payable with the online gaming persona that this imaginary person could have, Ajax. Ajax is tough and warlike, and when he dies in the fantasy, World of Warcraft or Skyrim or a video game like that, there's a funeral pyre and thousands of people come to mourn Ajax the warrior. And that's actually happened. In World of Warcraft, that's happened famously a couple of times. People come to mourn the real life passing of somebody who is very popular in the game. So this has like roots in reality. And Bannon says, who's more real, Dave in accounting or Ajax? And Bannon realized that disaffected men especially better identify with their online personas and the heroic deeds that imaginary person has done than their real life, which might be something like being a mechanic or being Dave from accounts payable. There's nothing inherently wrong with those roles, but they're not heroic. And this article, to sum up the rest of it as best as I can, talks about how Bannon utilized that realization and that desire to be somebody to stir up the support, to stir up the anger, and to give these normal people the means to become that heroic person in real life. And then he pointed that at the Capitol, and that's how we get January 6th. And the article argues a little more broadly that that's why it's hurting America.
Yeah. This is this article. Well, I'm fired up. I'm so
Is
many
it a
reasons.
stretch? Well, I think everyone should be level set with the fact that you two are gigantic nerds and play D&D.
Oh yeah.
So
sorry. Let's.
Yeah, total
I
nerds.
want to full disclosure.
Yeah.
Full disclosure
Absolutely.
for accountability.
he's like, why on earth are you so upset about this? I'm like, man, that's
I am a dungeon master.
Completely
okay.
unaffected.
The master of
Yeah.
at least a dungeon, and several bogs and a jungle, maybe some ruined churches.
I'm not the master of any dungeons, but I frequent a lot of them.
Yeah.
Ew.
Oh.
No.
Yeah. It's true. We know the circles are
There's a very funny meme about
the overlap.
The overlap between cosplayers, Dungeons and Dragons, and people into BDSM, and it basically looks like a stack of pancakes. So I'm not making any personal statements, but
No.
that was very funny.
Same. No, I'm actually, my anger has nothing to do with Dungeons and Dragons because I don't feel like an article like this will have any sort of impact on the culture of the game, right? Because the article's not about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a complete scope shift. The article's about Steve Bannon, and then it's also about this Christian need to only be identified, to only be significant within the scope of your religion, to only be your only worth is in the worth of Christ, and you completely lose your own self-worth and take on his worth, and that is how you find significance. So the idea that people would need to be significant in their own way outside of that is what is pagan. This article is not about D&D.
Yeah. It's also a little different than the first two clickbait articles in that this one uses its clickbaitiness for good? ? At least it makes a very salient point that is broadly applicable in society today that doesn't have anything necessarily to do specifically with Christianity and has a lot to do with just people
who feel like they need a purpose, and so they gravitate towards what will make them get the fame and fortune or woman or, money.
Yeah. I think
So,
one of the things that makes me the most angry about this article is that this is a microcosm of the kind of rhetoric that we see in ideological organizations and ideological bubbles, right? And I'm not going to say it's only Christianity because it's not. It happens in any close-knit ideological group, but it's the rhetoric that starts with something. And I am experienced in reading this stuff, so I can pinpoint exactly where the scope shifts, but it shifts like this. And by the time you get to the bottom, if you are a member of this ideological group, you understand and agree with what he's saying. And mentally, you connect it to the headline. Mentally, you connect it to where you started. But this is like a politician answering a question that he was never asked, right? This is like what they do in debates where they get asked a specific question and they say, oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. And they answer a completely different question. That's what this is. And if you don't understand that these sorts of tools are being used to shape your perceptions of things, it's very easy to get caught up in the conclusion. It's very easy to draw the line between point A and point B and completely forget that point A, you're not even on that line anymore. This takes you completely off of that line and then puts you somewhere else and then takes you back to the bottom and tries to draw it all together. But by the end, you're in such a confirmation loop that you just accept it all.
it reminds me exactly of sermons in general. Like that's like what you just explained about like, they start out with scripture and then they tell a personal antidote and it like weaves in this some kind of way and they all tidy it up at the end and you're like, yeah, wait, what? Like, and if you think about
Right.
like the whole journey of the sermon, none of it connects. And
Yeah.
yeah, I wonder, and I don't know if anyone can speak to this, but if theologians and pastors and people who write sermons and stuff like that, if they get taught that that type of, well, because I was thinking about the
You get it.
You got it.
I like the coaches that I have here. I only read words, I don't say them. The apologetics. Oh God, nope, it's not going to happen. Anyway,
Apologetics.
there we go. The apologetics class that I took and was promptly asked to leave. After after went to 2 out of like 6, and the guy who was leading it told me, I don't think you're going to find what you need here. So I suggest you go somewhere else. Because like I was told it was in the defense of Christianity.
Well, yeah, that's general.
Yeah, but what they were doing is they were teaching
Yeah.
how to do it and teaching that thought process of like, we're going to sit here and mold people's viewpoints to be what we want them to be. And I'm like, the whole time I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And he was getting so frustrated. He was like, stop. But anyway, yeah. So it reminds me of that. And especially because it's coming from Christianity today, it makes me wonder if like there's something here where that's just how they're encouraged to write.
That practice is called homiletics.
What? I'm going to Google that word.
Yeah, it's called homiletics. And there are many different approaches that, you're taught to take during a homiletics class. And they teach you how to do all of this stuff. And you can do a 3-point sermon, you can do a 5-point sermon, you could do a topical sermon, an apologetical sermon, a hermeneutical sermon. There's just a bajillion different types. It's a study of how to conduct that apologetics, how to teach people about the Bible. And it's a very clear process. The scope shifts super, super clearly. And at the end, you're agreeing with something that is not even where you started.
Yeah. This to me, because man, a lot of this felt like a sermon, like you said, Savannah, but especially at the end of it, there's actually a distinct point where he stops making the point about how this is impacting America and starts talking about how all you know, all you need is the kingdom of God. And that's where
Mhm.
like
That's when I stopped reading, by the way.
yeah, and that's exactly what I expect would happen with a lot of people, because this is not written for a non-believer. This is
No.
written to reinforce the believer. It's this is an admonishment, I think, to not be led astray by the glory that you can find in video games or in Dungeons and Dragons or in putting on your army man cosplay and raiding the Capitol. You know, this is a warning and pre-corrective in a lot of ways for the believer, which makes sense because I think Christianity today is intended for Christians.
It is, and this one in particular, this author writes for an older audience. Like, this is designed for a youth pastor. This is designed for a senior pastor. That's the target audience of this, parents. This is not for the teenager who might be considering playing Dungeons and Dragons for the first time, or for John or I, who are, you know, experienced with it, but also
we are
have this
seasoned
context.
D&D players.
I didn't say season, but
Highly
we also
seasoned,
have this
aged
context
and
and we can
wizened.
understand it, but this is not for us. We are not the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was yeah. I'm not surprised to find it on Christianity Today. They generally do a good job of presenting a broad spectrum of Christian perspectives. They do a pretty good job. They do have some guest posters and stuff that, but it's like a HuffPost. Christianity Today only writes and creates a certain set of resources, and then it's all guest posters and bloggers and stuff like that. But
I mean, just in this article alone, the other main linked articles are: the Capitol attack signaled a post-Christian church, not merely a post-Christian culture, which carries a lot of implications. And
same author, by the way.
Is it
same author as this article?
Yeah. And then Jonathan Haidt says social media is making America stupid. So that's
I don't disagree.
I was about to say, like, I'm kind of on board with that. It's not a hot take.
No, it's not. But you know, it's
right.
It's one that plays on your it's actually one that plays off of that feeling. Well, no duh. But now I kind of want to see why he thinks he's being wise here. I don't know.
Why we need to hear from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I believe this. I want to hear somebody else reinforce my belief. That's what it is.
Yeah. And that, yeah.
And that just gets down to a lot about what clickbait is. And we've mentioned already, clickbait plays on confirmation bias more than anything else. You expect to see that article, to see the snippet of news, the factoid that it contains, and you want to be reassured in your belief. You want your belief to be reconfirmed, and so you click on it and you're like, yeah. That's what I thought. This stupid group did this thing. And it almost always centers around a group. It'll single out a group and say this group did a thing, and play on that othering and the tribalism of, well, that's an out group and not my group, and they're bad because they're the others. Once you know to look for that, you're like, I see what you're doing there, and screw you. I don't like being manipulated.
Yeah. It's frustrating once you see it, and it definitely undermines one's ability to trust the things that they read, especially when it should be a trustworthy news source. But once you learn how to do it, it's a skill that will get you far.
Okay. Is that all of our articles?
That's all of our articles.
Are we done?
Well, I mean, we need somebody to say something very awkward so that we can transition out of this thing.
You know,
we can have good news, right? Oh, good news. Is good news awkward?
Oh shit! I don't find any good news. Give me a minute. Y'all say awkward things while I go find good news.
Oh boy, let's say, have we not been doing that with talks of placental ingestion and?
You know, the good news, John, is that you looked like you looked like a drowned cat in your demeanor when you got on here. And that's not just because you were flipping me off for the moment the camera was on, but you were just in the worst mood. And I think the good news is that we have turned that frown upside down, and I have seen you laugh a lot.
It's true. I have laughed a lot. I'm not sure if my frown is gone so much as redirected at new sources of ire. But yes, I do feel better, actually.
Good. You should have been here earlier.
I should have, but I wasn't.
Oh, John, you didn't get to hear. I'm going to be in Morocco, and I'm going to be in Casablanca for the night, one night, and then Marrakesh for like a lot longer. But I'm going to be in Casablanca by myself, and so if I get murdered, the apartment's like right next to the giant mosque in Casablanca. So I've sent the link of where I'm going to be out to a few people. So just get in touch.
Are you telling me this so I can go Taken and like Liam Neeson after you if something bad happens?
No, because your wife is going to want to know.
Well, she'll do it too. Honestly, I'll have to be like, slow down. So, I think we could get a small army to invade Morocco.
There's some people that would be fighting the other side. Keep her. So I was trying to learn how to wear a hijab, and it was like Kat, my best friend, was a practicing Muslim for a long time, and so she knows how to like wear it. And she was like giving me a class, and she sent me all these links to all these cool like do's, and I'm like, this is witchcraft. Like all this stuff is just complete and total witchcraft. Anyway,
I'm pretty sure that Allah bans witchcraft. I'm pretty sure that's frowned upon. So you
what
best
is
not say it. Witchcraft. Don't actually call it witchcraft. That's bad.
Okay.
Blasphemer.
Well, I'm actually worried about being a white American woman with a Muslim host that's a man for this Airbnb. And I'm wondering if there's going to be problems only because like from what I've read about this country in particular, and I'm not subscribing to Muslim people being like this at all. It's not like, it's just that is unorthodox. And so I would assume as a host, he is okay with women staying with him, but I wonder if it's going to be a problem.
I don't know. I don't think so. Surely he understands what he's, signing up for.
Yeah, that would be my assumption. I can't find any good news knowledge, so y'all are gonna have to help me out.
Good
This
news
is the fourth
is that
good news in a row that I've had to find, and I'm getting drained because there's not good shit out there.
Uh-oh.
Ooh, this part of the show will be edited heavily.
Ain't shit out there, y'all.
Everything is bad, and I'm sad.
YouTubes, help me find the good news.
You taught me homiletics. That's pretty cool. That's good news.
You want to talk about some bonus content material? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what we're going to be doing for bonus content, but aside from maybe splicing out like 15 minutes of this conversation, but I could tell y'all about how I used to be real big into apologetics.
Oh no.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Like, real big into
Let's call
you like
that
to argue
content.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I love to argue. And what's better than having a topic that everybody will always tell me I'm wrong about and give me so many opportunities to argue? It was horrifying as I look back on it, but so interesting to the I think that was sophomore year of high school.
Did you read The Case for Christ?
Oh, I sure did read The Case for Christ. Oh my gosh. I read that book many times. I had a lot of it memorized. It was bad. I'm not lying. I was like deep into it.
Yeah.
And like having arguments about how the earth was only 6,000 years old and how we can prove it.
Yeah.
how
Oh,
oh yeah how
Oh, yeah.
dinosaurs
I at one point was also on the mission to prove that. I mean, I don't think I ever went as far as like the only 6,000 years old, but like to prove that the things in the Bible were true, was absolutely into that for a hot minute.
yes,
I
Savannah.
have good news.
We no
Okay,
longer
tell me
are
your good
deep
news.
into apologetics. That's the good news.
The good news is Botswana cuts the HIV transmission rates in children from 40% to 1%.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the World Health Organization.
Botswana.
Smartass.
Oh
You
my
almost got
God.
me. You almost got me.
Thank you.
So close.
You saw my mouth open.
I did. I was like, "Eek." Damn it.
You'll not get me. An apple will. Fiber shall. Anyway, it stops the transmission of HIV from moms and their newborns since they started doing a program 23 years ago. So only 4 babies have been born with HIV all year in this one central district, and then none in all the others. So that is a giant good news thing.
That is
That
awesome.
is massive good news. That's so cool.
And it was also the highest, the highest epidemic of HIV transmission. Botswana was. So pretty cool.
So yeah, very important to get a massive win like that. That's so cool.
Yeah, well.
40 to 1%. My brain is bad at percentages, and it really wants to say a 39% reduction, but that's not what it is.
Math. No.
It is not what it is.
40% transmission to 1% transmission. So much larger than a 39% reduction.
Pretty amazing. So there you go. You got your good news.
That is good news.
Yeah. It's great news. I think that about does it for us then. Savannah.
Oh, look at that.
Pressure.
We're only 20 minutes behind.
Pressure.
Oh, what?
Do
What
you
am I
wanna
pressured
take
for?
us out? You want to take us out of here? You want to sign us off?
I mean,
Means I
she would
wanna
like to take us out
yeah.
most of the time.
Listen, people, we have to stay on the good side of the content moderators, so we can't be talking about stuff like that.
I bet she would
Unless
take
you
us out for
meant take
dinner.
yourself out on a date, in which case we can.
You know the meme that I'm thinking of right now.
I sure
so.
do.
Okay. All right. So thank you guys for listening to our fireside breakdown of these lovely articles. Check us out on Instagram, Spotify, any place you listen to podcasts, Facebook. Please leave us a review. Check out our website, firesidebreakdowns.com, and take care of each other. Until next time.